All right. My name is Colton Service. We're at Coconino High School with Mayor Nabours here in Flagstaff, Arizona. Glad you can spend some time with us today and cut some time out of your busy schedule and visit the man you are. I'm glad you're here.
My pleasure. Anything to support the high schools.
Perfect. So we just have a couple of questions for you to get started. We're going to start off a little easy and then get a little bit more political.
Okay.
So tell us about yourself. Some background information, things along that line.
You know, I was born and raised in Yuma, and if you've ever been to Yuma, then you know it's quite different from Flagstaff. So I came to Flagstaff to go to NAU. Whoa, I like it up here. Just about never left. After I graduated from NAU, I went to law school at Tucson, at the University of Arizona, and as soon as I got my law degree, I came back to Flagstaff, and I've been here ever since. So that's been like 40 years. Met my wife at NAU, and we've been married for 38 years. We've had 2 children that have gone through the Flagstaff public school system, both at Flag High. So, and they are growing and off now, and I have actually 2 grandchildren living in Flagstaff.
What makes you the most qualified candidate for this mayor election?
Good question, Colton. And first of all, I have 4 years' experience as mayor. And you can be on the city council, but it is different from being mayor. And for example, my job is very much full-time. I have an office at City Hall. That is the only thing I do, is work as being mayor. Whereas council, it's very much more a part-time job, and every Tuesday, you know, we have a council meeting, for sure, show up for that. But my job extends around the whole week. And a lot of what I do is meet with people, find out what's going on in the city, what people are thinking about doing, and to know where people are coming from with different ideas in different areas of town is very helpful to kind of see how is the city proceeding, how can I help bring things to the council for a decision. I don't get to make decisions on my own, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes before an issue gets to the city council. And I have built, I think, are very good relationships with a lot of companies or entities that are important to the city.
Next question I have for you is minimum wage. What is your view on minimum wage, and how is that going to benefit or affect Flagstaff?
All right. There's a proposition, of course, on the ballot. I am opposed to the proposed $15 an hour minimum wage in Flagstaff. And let me give you some reasons why. I am on the board of directors of Goodwill. Goodwill employs a lot of people that may not get a job elsewhere because sometimes they need some mentoring, job coaching, they call it. And Goodwill cannot afford to almost double its labor cost, which from $8 minimum wage now to 15, almost double, obviously. And if that labor cost goes up that much, Goodwill will substantially have to reduce its operations and reduce the number of employees. So that means somebody who having a job is very important to them may not get that job. Also, I think that the minimum wage is really provided for entry-level employment for people who maybe have never had a job before and need to learn, how do you have a job? How do you do this? And they're just not worth, to the employer, they are not worth $15 an hour. And so I am afraid what it will do is result in fewer jobs. And this has been the case in different places that this has been studied, that it could very easily result in fewer jobs And it's a huge impact on the small businesses. And I'm more concerned about the small businesses. I always, as an attorney, represented small businesses and not the big corporations. And I've had a lot of small businesses tell me, all right, if I have to start someone at 15, then the person who has been with me for a year or 2 or 3, I've got to give them 25. And it just goes all the way up. And I may not be able to raise my prices enough to cover that. So I may have to put somebody on part-time or not have as many employees. So one of my problems with that proposition is there is no exception for nonprofits. There's no exceptions for the size of your business. It's everybody, no exceptions, gets $15 an hour.
I've heard some people talk about raising the minimum wage slowly, and I was just wondering what you thought of that.
Raising it slowly?
Yeah, like $9 an hour, $10 an hour.
Yes, this proposition in Flagstaff that would raise it to 15 raises it to 10 and then $1 an hour a year, and then it skips a year to go from 13 to 15. So it raises it over 4 years, but that's still fairly quick in the business world. And I think it will raise gradually just through the market.
Yes, I apologize, but I hope you don't mind if we go back to when you talked about your relationships with other members of the state government.
Sure.
So if by chance you don't get re-elected, will that harm the relationships between like the state government or APS with Flagstaff?
Yes, in my opinion, it most definitely will. And as I always say, I'll give you some examples. Our state legislators, who will very likely be re-elected, have no connection whatsoever with my opponent. They told me the other day they have never seen my opponent at the state legislature or calling upon them at their offices. So there is no relationship there. Maybe that can be built, I don't know. I already have that relationship. I have their cell phones, I call them anytime. And I spent this morning with our federal senator, Senator Jeff Flake. He was in Flagstaff, and he's in Flagstaff. We spend time together. We're talking about the federal things that affect Flagstaff. And we went up to the site of the new veterans home, veterans assisted living home that we hope to get built. And we got the state funding for that veterans home, $10 million. And that took a lot of connections and contacts with our state legislators, numerous trips by me and some others, of course, to the state legislature to get that $10 million. And that's some of the state connections that I feel good about.
That leads me right into my next question. With all these connections that you have, is there different ways that you can help promote businesses, small businesses, and big businesses to help them get more employers to come to get interested in those businesses? Is there any connections that you have that help those businesses get employers or help with the wages and stuff like that?
Well, as I mentioned, when businesses are thinking about coming to Flagstaff, they will often contact me and ask me to help them along. We had the groundbreaking just a couple of weeks ago for up by the ambulance facility that's up on McMillan Mesa, right up here from your school. Groundbreaking for a rehabilitation hospital. And this is a hospital that if you get terribly injured, and after the hospital fixes you up, but you may need to learn to talk again or walk again. Then you go to a rehab hospital. We have not had one in Flagstaff. And a year ago, that company contacted me, and we're kind of thinking about coming to Flagstaff. And so I immediately recognized Now, this is something we need. They employ 200 people. And so got them working with the hospital, found where's a place that they could build their facility, kind of got the groundwork, so to speak, laid for that, and then we had the groundbreaking here a few weeks ago. That took a year from the time they first contacted me until then. But it was encouraging them, hey, keep looking, don't give up on us, we really want you here, that kind of thing. And I also like to think that I am kind of a champion of small business, because that's always who I represented. And I'll give you an example. If you want to start a simple business and you need an office or a retail store in a shopping center or an office building, this is typically where you start, then right now, you would think, okay, I need to remodel this office because I need some partitions and I need a counter at the front, or I need to rearrange it. Usually it's just a box. And so I need to customize it for my business. And you're a startup business. You don't have a lot of money. The law right now is that you have to hire an architect to have that space architecturally designed and engineered for the simple facility that you may want to make. And we're not talking structural changes. The perimeter walls will remain the same. Why would you have to get an architect for a small space like that? You can draw it on a piece of paper. Here's what I want to do, and we're not changing the restroom that's there. And so I proposed a change in the state law, and I got some of the state legislators to help me out, take that through the process, to where if it's a small office or small retail store, you can do it with a licensed contractor. You don't have to have an architect, just to help that small business.
Speaking of contractors, will Hub, the apartment complexes that were proposed by the private company, affect Flagstaff's economy in any way? Will it help, hurt? What's your view on that?
It will help that area's economy, where it is on the south side. When you bring in hundreds of people who want to buy things and eat and party somewhat, then that's going to bring money to that area. There's no question. The merchants in that area are going to have a boom, because all of a sudden you have a lot of customers and you have them in walking distance. They don't have to worry about finding a place to park, or getting home after they've had a drink or something. That will be, I think, quite an economic boom to that area.
What about in the long run, as Flagstaff as a whole, as that economy slowly spreads out through Flagstaff? Will that help it also?
Well, the students in general, people kind of criticize, we're getting too many NAU students, and NAU's getting too big, and it's a lot bigger than when I went there, of course, but it is the major economic driver in Flagstaff. No question about that. And so the more students we have, the more money is coming into town. That helps the economy. Now, it's also going to result in a change, and you're going to see it probably between downtown and the train depot, let's say. A corridor from there to NAU is going to get built up with more housing and more merchants of all kinds, because it's just a logical corridor. It's a logical place. And so when there is a market demand like that, it will change. Now, it won't be so much the city driving it as just the demand and the market, but if you have a piece of property, let's say in that corridor, the city is not going to tell you, you can't sell that. That's been a house for 100 years in Flagstaff. and you're not allowed to sell it. We would not have that right to say that. So if you want to sell your house and your property to somebody that wants to have an apartment building, then you have that right. The apartment building, or whatever the proposed use, has to meet the standards and the code that we have in place. And that code has been in place for 25 years.
All right.
Do you have a
So
question?
actually, I had a question. So, if we build new infrastructures to accommodate all of these students, how will that affect our housing prices overall?
Okay, housing prices is one of the things I love to talk about, so thanks for that. The reason our housing is so expensive right now, both housing and apartments, is because we don't have enough of it. And so the apartment owners, some of them do not even take waiting lists. If I'm an apartment owner, I have a vacancy, whoever walks in the door in the next hour gets that apartment. That's how critical it is. Housing is much the same, very expensive and not a whole lot on the market. So what we have to do is meet the demand. And this is happening. You're going to see a lot of apartments get built in the next couple of years. You're seeing some now, and it will continue. And that will bring down the prices. Also, we're starting to see housing increase, new housing. This coming Tuesday, we will probably approve a 1,500 house subdivision on Woody Mountain Road. Now, it won't all be built right away. It will take several years to build it and sell it. But that will very much help bring the prices down, because the only thing that brings prices down is more product, whatever that product is, meeting the demand.
So with that, Flagstaff kind of prides itself in being a small city. So with all of these new housing going in, do you think that would affect the forest around it and give us less space or more space in Flagstaff?
I'm asked that question a lot, is aren't we somehow restricted in Flagstaff because we're surrounded by national forest or other government land? And we have quite a lot of land in Flagstaff. It is not all easily accessible right now. And this is one of the things that the city can do, and it just came up last night actually, that to facilitate some new roads and new utility lines so that there can be more areas of town that right now are not getting any kind of development because there's no road there. Help facilitate that. Not that the city would pay for it. The developers and property owners are the ones that pay for it. Because somebody needs to organize it and direct it. And that's the role of the city. So, for example, if you can picture behind Little America, there are 2,000 acres of vacant land behind Little America that are in the city limits.
Actually, so while we're on the topic of apartment complexes, there was a legal issue with an apartment complex because their lights were too bright for the dark skies. So if we get more apartment complexes, is that going to affect our dark sky that we take pride of our town?
We have a very tightly controlled dark sky ordinance. So whenever you build anything, you are required to meet the dark sky ordinance. Eventually, let's say the whole town was built out and everybody had the dark sky ordinance, there would still be more light than there is now. So what we are doing is working with the observatories to see what is the best light, what is the best wavelength of light, so that we don't use high pressure sodium, the real bright light, because that interferes with astronomy. Not all light waves do. And kind of my lay thinking is like the bluer the light, the less it interferes with the astronomers. So that's what we are doing, is finding lighting that works for a city and for the people in it, but also is the least interfering with the observatories.
Thank you.
So back in 2014, you were doing an interview with the FLA, and
The FLA.
uh,
Liberty Alliance.
yes, Flagstaff Liberty Alliance, and you stated that the city took the $2.6 million that weren't being used from, I believe it was just a housing development, so that it can be used for like building infrastructure and just other city uses. But has that development tried to get some money from the budget to start building houses?
I think what you may be referring to is that the city took money that was designated for the improvements of the Sunnyside area, for streets and sidewalks and all the Sunnyside area, and used it at the Auto Mall. Now that, I think that might be what you're referring to, because I don't know what else it would be. You remember any other detail of it? Because we don't take housing money. There's certain monies at the city that you can move around and some that you can't. And money that we get that's designated for low-cost housing or affordable housing absolutely does not get used for anything else. But a few years ago, one of my criticisms of the city was that they took money that the voters had voted for Sunnyside improvements and used it to build the Auto Mall. The idea was foolish. The idea was that, well, we'll build the Auto Mall, we'll sell all of the lots in the Auto Mall, and we'll get that money right back. So we're just sort of borrowing it. Well, they didn't sell all the lots in the Auto Mall. They still haven't sold all the lots in the Auto Mall. So the city taxpayers have had to make up that money year by year. So that might be.
So it was just not about the money not being used, it was just being mistreated with.
Not used for the purpose that the voters had approved it.
With that actually leads on to one of my questions. With Flagstaff constantly growing, how do you plan on keeping the economy as stable as possible with everything in flux?
This is one of the things that I do in my week after week is to try to make sure that we are getting more jobs in Flagstaff so that the economy will be stable. When Walgreens Distribution Center closed, we took a hit on that. That was 200 plus employees, good jobs. All of a sudden, we have 200 families that are out of work. That's a problem, and that's what I try to avoid. And the only way you can avoid that is to continually be talking to companies who might be willing to come to Flagstaff and employ and have good jobs, because you are certainly going to lose some of your employers. So you're trying to just make sure that there is always a job. When you get out of high school, and let's say you don't want to go on to college or something else, I want there to be a job for you. If you do go on to college, and come back to Flagstaff, that's your choice. I want you to be able to get a job.
Yes, so with like new housing developments and companies coming to Flagstaff and basically the growing of population, that would probably cause a lot of traffic. So is there just a plan with like coming up with new routes, or just basically trying to lower traffic jams and accidents around the city?
Sure. I was surprised when I became mayor. I was surprised that there was not some overall 20-year traffic plan for Flagstaff. I thought certainly there would be a big map on the wall, and it would show every street in Flagstaff, and it would show this is the proposed street, and in 3 years we're going to widen this street, and this street will connect with this. I was amazed that there is not such a thing, and it's just all piecemeal. Well, we'll work on this little part over here, and we'll work on that over there, and it was not coordinated. And so about a year and a half ago, I got on what we call the Flagstaff Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is supposed to be doing this overall planning for traffic. And I have continually pushed for let's get a long-range plan. That is finally coming together. We have a citizens task force who has made a list of here's the street improvements we need, the new streets we need, how much do they cost, where can we get that funding, and what's our priority.
So throughout this conversation, we've talked about NAU and Coconino and Flag High. So if reelected, how do you plan on improving funding for the schools or traffic on Milton with that stuff? I know that's a reoccurrence question, but like funding for the high schools, middle school, and the elementary school level, how do you plan on doing that if reelected?
The city has very little ability to fund the schools, and a lot of people don't recognize this. It's kind of complicated, but the schools are completely independent of the city. And the schools are run by the school board, and they are funded in their own way. Their funds do not come from the city. So what the city does is takes care of everything kind of around the school. It's the city's obligation to have good streets and to be able to get to your school. It's the city's obligation that when you turn on the water, that it runs and it's pure and clean here at the school. And it's our obligation to make sure you are safe at your school with city police and city fire and medical response.
So I'm actually a cheer captain here at Coconino, and you were at the FACS after school program thing at I think it was Buffalo Park, and Bushmaster, and you guys ran with us for the mile. I remember that. And I was wondering, if you don't get mayor, will you still kind of like be at that kind of stuff to support our schools still?
You know, I've been here for 40 years and I've done a lot of activities. Yes, I will continue to do a lot of activities, but it's interesting. It's not me that you want at Bushmaster Park. It's the mayor, and so it's just not the same. If we did that exact same event next year and I wasn't there as the mayor, it would, even though I was still there, well, where's the mayor?
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah.
I consider that my obligation when I am the mayor to be very visible in the community and to support the community. And I'll keep doing things, I always have for all these years, but it just won't be quite the same.
Okay, thank you.
Does the audience have any other questions?
I have one more, it's a little off topic. So I attended that city hearing for an indoor shooting range here for support against it, support for it. And I was wondering, what are your views on gun control? What are your?
I have never owned a gun. I don't care to own a gun. I understand that people have a constitutional right to have a gun. I think there should be more controls on guns than there are now. And I want to tell you, the two worst things that I've had to do as mayor is call the father of our police officer who was killed and call the father of the NAU student who was killed by guns. Hurt me.
Yeah.
So I am not a big gun person.
Okay.
But I understand you have a constitutional right to have a gun.
All right. Thank you.
Question?
Yeah. So you became mayor in 2012 was your first time you were elected, right?
Yes.
Yes. So if you keep winning, how long do you intend on running for mayor?
Good question. I've thought about that myself, and assuming that I do win this time, that would make 6 years. it is a very hard job. And if there was someone else that I thought could do the job as well as I do, I would be happy to turn it over to them, help them get elected. But it's an awkward thing. If you think you're really good at something and nobody's there to take your place, then you kind of keep going. But I can tell you, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. It's a hard job. And a couple more years, I'll do it, and we'll take a look. 8 at the most.
That's a good question.
Is there any last questions?
So this one kind of relates to an answer you gave a while back about our police department and our fire department. So with the growing population and the new housing and everything, how are you thinking about our safety as a city and everything in regards to our police officers, and with all the commotion that's going on, let's say with clowns or with
Policing in general?
Yeah.
There you go. I firmly believe that we have a very good police department, and the city council now takes good care of our police. We gave the police an extra raise over the rest of all the other city employees. We set up a program where we will loan police money for a down payment, and then they can kind of work that off, if you will, by staying with the police department for a few years. We've increased their training, we've increased their uniform allowance. We want satisfied police officers, because that's your best police officer. You don't want somebody out there that's going, oh, I hate this job and I'm going to take it out on the citizens or something. So we don't have that. We have excellent police, and we will continue to. That is a top priority of mine, and if we need more officers, we will hire more officers. We're always looking for good officers. We also have set up, and I give the credit to the police chief, Kevin Treadway, has set up a community coalition that just sits down like every other month and talks about, hey, are we policing okay? Are you seeing any problems? Does your neighborhood feel like we are doing something, like we're doing too much speed control in your neighborhood for some ulterior motive? Do you think we are being abusive in any way? So we have this dialogue where the community is free to tell the police, I don't think you're doing this right. And that has worked very well. We were one of the first early cities to have all of our police officers with cameras, because we want to know what their interaction with the public is. And you know what's happened on that is we used to get, X number of complaints about the police. Since we started having the cameras, the complaints have dropped way off, because when they look at the video, you were mean to me when you arrested me. Now, okay, let's look at the video and see. You were totally obnoxious. It wasn't the police officer who was obnoxious, it was you. And it's quite clear on the video. Oh, okay, I'll drop my complaint. So it's been fair to the public, and it's been fair to the police to have that. But I am absolutely adamant that that is one of the first things that a city takes care of, is its police, so that you feel safe as you can be. You feel safe and you believe that the police are fair. That's number one.
So with our war veterans that have come back from war, have you worked with them to find jobs, housing, anything like that, get them back on their feet or anything? I work with the veterans. I meet with the veterans. I support the veterans' activities quite a lot. I have several plaques and awards from the veterans, and
one of the major spokesmen for the Veterans Organization and the Purple Heart Organization has endorsed me. And I'm supportive of the veterans, absolutely. I am not a veteran. I missed everything. But the Veterans Assisted Living Facility is an example of how we put that support into action. That had to be carried forward by someone like a mayor to get that done, and that has worked.
When do you think it'll be up and running?
We met this morning with Senator Flake, as I mentioned, and Senator Flake and Senator McCain are helping us get the funds from the federal Veterans Administration because it's matching funds. The state puts in 10 million, the city puts in the land, the state puts in 10 million, the federal government puts in 20 million. And that's how we get it built. And we are moving up that list to get that federal money, and our senators have been very helpful in that. That's an example and the reason that I feel good about getting that veterans facility is not only does it take care of veterans who are right now elderly and need a place like that, but it sends a message to people your age that, hey, our country takes care of our veterans, appreciates our veterans. Maybe you will think about joining the military because it's held in high esteem. And that's one example of why a person your age might think, well, I might choose the military. I might go to that ROTC.
Yes, sir.
Do you have been very kind to spend, probably this is your off time, I think the period is over maybe, but you've been very nice to spend your time with me. You have very
Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you. Well, Mayor, it was nice spending time with you. Thank you for coming in.
Colton, my pleasure.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you
Thanks
so
guys
much.
for attending.